ሰላም እንዴት ናችሁ? ደህና ናችሁ ወይ? ሄርሜላ ባልቻ ነኝ ከባልቻ ግሩፕ። ኤፒሶድ 5 ላይ ስለ ትረስት አውርተናችሁ ነበር። ስለ ታይትል ካምፓኒ ምን እንደሚሰሩ አውርተናችሁ ነበር። ዛሬ ይዘንላችሁ የመጣ ነው ከሚስታት ዋይር ነው። ሂ ኢዝ አቶርኒ ሎ ከኔ ጋር ወደ 4 ዓመት አብረን ሰርተናል። ቤት በማጋዛትም ሆነ በመሸጥም ሆነ ሰርተናል። እንዲሁም ደግሞ ትረስትና ዊልንም እንደዚህ አይነት ነገሮችን ለማዘጋጀት ከእሱ ጋር ሰርቻለሁ። የእኛንም ትረስት የሰራልን እሱ ነው። ዛሬ ጥያቄዎች እንጠይቀዋለን። እናንተ የጠይቃችሁን ጥያቄዎች ቀጥታ ለእሱ ጠይቀን የሚመልሰው መልሶች ታገኛላችሁ ማለት ነው። እንደተለመደው ከዲ ሃሪስ ደረስ ጋር ነኝ ያለሁት።
ደረሰ ሃሪስ ነኝ። እንኳን ደህና አደረሳችሁ ለሪል ስቴት ቶክ። በጣም ደስ ይላል እንደዚህ መድረሳችን። ከካሪና ከሄርሜላ ጋር ነን። ይህንን ኤፒሶድ እንግዲህ ሄርሜላ እንዳለችው ስለ ትረስት ነው የምናወራው። ዛሬ ፕሮፌሽናል አውጥተንላችሁ ነው ከነሱ አፍ እንድትሰሙት ነው የምንፈልገው። እሱ ነው ፍላጎታችን። ይህን ደግሞ እንቀጥላለን። በሌሎችም ፕሮፌሽናሎች አንዳንድ ነገሮችን እናስተዋውቅላችኋለን።
ከኔ የሚነግረን ኢንፎርሜሽን በእንግሊዝኛ በሚያወራ ነው ኦብቪየስሊ። ከዛም በኋላ ሪካፕ እናደርግላችኋለን በአማርኛ። እንግሊዝኛ ፉሊ ለሚያንደርስታንድ ለሚያደርገውም ደግሞ ይጠቀምበታል ማለት ነው።
Hello, how's it going?
Welcome.
Okay, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Fantastic. So as I shared with you, we obviously work very closely with each other. And most of the transactions, if not all of them, I work with Universal Title. And obviously, as I share with my clients, the reason I choose Universal Title is because you're priced well and also you provide phenomenal service. So most people ask, what is closing cost? And they will also ask, what does the title company do?
Sure.
So those 2 questions.
Okay, 2 questions for me. Let's start with what does the title company do? Because that's really my area of expertise. So the title company comes into the picture when buyers and sellers once you have a ratified contract, that contract will come to the title company. And we don't represent the buyers or the sellers, we represent the contract. And what that means is we essentially act as the central coordinator for the contract. We work with the agents, we work with the buyers and sellers and the lender and anybody else in the contract to make sure everything gets done that needs to get done. In addition to that, we work with the lender to finalize all of the numbers. We generate some of the documents, and then the lender sends us some of their documents. And once it's time for settlement, we will actually meet with everybody and sign all the documents. We hold all the money during the transaction, and then once everything's closed, we send the money out where it's supposed to go.
Okay. What is the difference? So, for example, in the state of Maryland, we have the option to have the broker hold earnest money deposit, or we could use title company. I always recommend title company just because of the safety and security in a sense, and they're a third party that have no involvement with the transaction. So I find that to be a positive process. So with the title company, what do you guys do outside of the facilitation, like the title search and things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So a big part of what we do is do everything that's necessary to be able to issue title insurance. Title insurance protects, just briefly, protects the holder of the policy's interest in a piece of real property against other people who might have an interest in real property, in that property. So usually give us just a quick example. Let's say we have an elderly lady, she's got 2 grown kids, boy and a girl. Girl's taking care of mother. They haven't seen the boy in 10 years. Mama dies, unfortunately. The property goes to the 2 kids, through her estate, which we'll talk about later. The girl waits another 10 years. She hasn't seen her brother in 20 years. She just goes ahead and sells the property, right? Well, it turns out brother is alive, and he finds out, oh, I was supposed to get half of that property. Whoever's purchased the property, he can rightfully go and say, hey, I have a 50% interest in this property that was never accounted for, right? So we're trying, in the title process, we're going to pull all the deeds going back 60 years in the land records. We're going to try to connect all those dots to make sure there are none of those issues that we can see. Right. So really what you're buying title insurance against is people lie, people commit fraud, people don't record things that they're supposed to. Most importantly, we can't check everywhere, we can't know everything, right? So we do our best to eliminate the risk, but title issues are out there and they do come up from time to time. The other thing that title insurance protects you against is title fraud, title theft, depending on the policy that you get. But the policy that most people get includes title fraud, title theft coverage, and that really is the biggest issue that we face right now. Across our company in the last year at least 42 fraudulent transactions we've uncovered. Yeah, it's a major problem with people pretending to be the owner of the property and selling the property. So your title insurance would cover you for that. But the other reason why it's important that we do the work to issue title insurance is because if you are taking out a loan to buy the property, the lender's not going to give you the loan unless you buy them a title insurance policy, because they want to know that they're insured in the event that they have to foreclose. Right, so for most people, they're going to buy the property with a loan, and it's necessary for us to go through the process so that we can issue title insurance so that they can actually get their loan.
Got it.
Just can you, at a high level, can you break down what a CD looks like? What when people use title insurance?
Sure.
What are the costs that they kind of account for?
Do you mean like title insurance costs?
Pieces, the lending pieces.
Just the overall,
Let's break down.
Yeah, sure, no problem. So the costs that you're going to have are one is going to be fixed costs. They're going to be transfer taxes. So those are going to be based on your sale price, and depending on if it's Maryland or Virginia, it'll be based on if you're recording a mortgage or not. So those are kind of fixed costs, but we can calculate those pretty easily. Beyond that, you're going to have lender fees. So they're going to have some kind of origination fees that you have with them. The lender's also going to, and I don't want to step on anybody's toes for the lender portion, but one of the things, if you have a loan, your lender's going to end up paying your property taxes and homeowners insurance. That's going to be included. So they're going to set up that account. They're going to collect some money to get you ready for that. Then in the title section, the title charges section, we're going to have our fees. So we'll charge for the title search, for coordinating the buyer's side of the transaction, and then we'll also charge fees for title insurance. The fees for title insurance are set by the state, so no matter where you go, it's going to be basically this exact same price. It just the main difference is the title insurer that you get. We underwrite for First American, and that's the largest national title insurer. They're not going anywhere, so if you buy insurance from them, you're going to be set. Yeah. But so we have the transfer taxes. You're going to have lender fees. You're going to have some collecting of taxes and insurance to get
prepaid items.
Yeah, prepaids. And then the last thing, you're going to have your title charges, that I just described.
What we forgot to mention, Kelly is an attorney at law. ጠበቃ ነው። ስለዚህ በሚያወራን ነገሮች በዲሲ ሜሪላንድ ቨርጂኒያ ውስጥ ጠበቃ ነው። You're licensed in DC and Maryland?
Maryland and Virginia.
Maryland and Virginia. So mechanical lien.
Mechanics liens, yeah.
Mechanics lien. So let's talk about that, because usually when I explain title insurance to my buyers, I explain to them, let's say the seller replaced the roof.
Yeah.
And he had a disagreement with the contractor, decided not to pay them. Mm-hmm. That cost does not go on his credit. It goes against the property.
Right. So the mechanics lien is a lien, an interest in the property filed by a third party who's either done work on the property or provided labor materials for work on the property, or both. Right. So if I'm a contractor and I put a roof on your house, I'm going to file a lien for my work that I did and for the cost of the materials. Why would they do that? Because the house can't go anywhere. Mm-hmm. Right. They can always go and try to go to court and get paid by having the court sell the house if they need to. Mm-hmm. So that's what a mechanics lien is. So if the seller, when you're buying a piece of property, if the seller's had any work done on the property during the process, if they haven't paid all of those contractors in full, then there's a potential that after you buy the property, the contractors could put a lien on the property. Now, when we go through the process, the title insurance process, we're having the seller confirm in a signed sworn affidavit that they've paid everybody. And if they haven't, your title insurance would cover you, right? So they will pay off the contractor, and then the title insurer is going to sue the seller. Right. But you don't have to deal with that.
So now we've talked about when you buy the property, how do you use a title company? Okay. But most importantly, now we want to talk about, it's not just buying your property. Once you have it, how do you protect it?
Sure.
So most people have different thoughts. So I've heard of, we want to put my husband, my kids, and everybody on the title. Okay. And I always try to explain to them, but when you do need to sell the property, these individuals would need to be a part of the selling process. And obviously, if there is an issue or don't get along with each other, they have interest on that title, so they might limit you from the things that you can't do.
Yeah.
So I always recommend trust, and as I mentioned earlier, I did trust with you. Mm-hmm. And it's been a pleasant experience, so I figured why not share with others and see if there's an opportunity for our clients to use this method. But what I would like to do, on episode 5, we explained title trust based on what I know from a consumer point of view. Yeah. But today I would like for you to talk about if a person has a mortgage on their home and they are the only ones on the title, they're the only ones on the mortgage, and God forbid they died.
Okay.
What happens to their property?
Okay, what happens to the property? Well, if you pass away and you're, let's say I'm the sole owner of this house and I pass this beautiful house, by the
Thank
way.
you.
I pass away and I don't have a will, right? A will is a written document that says what you want to have happen with your property. If I don't have that, the property is going to ultimately pass to my heirs at law. That means typically your wife and then your children. If you don't have either one of those, it's going to go to your parents. If you don't have those, it's going to go out to your siblings. And
And
different
then
things.
it has a mortgage. That's the process.
Yeah, well, yeah. So that's what's going to happen to the title of the property. If you have a mortgage on the property, if the title passes to someone else, the mortgage is not necessarily going to be immediately due and payable, right? Let's say my heir at law is Hermela, and title ultimately passes to her, but I had a mortgage on the house. As long as Hermela keeps paying, she can arrange with the bank to keep paying the mortgage. They're not going to immediately call in the loan and say, hey, you have to refinance right now. Right. Their main concern is that they just continue to get paid. And think about it, this happens all the time, right? People have debt and they pass away. The bank doesn't necessarily want to go put you through the trouble or them through the trouble of having to come after you and say, hey, you have to refinance or pay us right now, right? They prefer to just keep getting paid.
And that actually depends on the type of loan that the owner of the home has. So it could be different if the loan is payable or anything like that.
Yeah.
But we're talking traditional 30-year fixed mortgage, primary residence type of situation.
Right. Correct.
Okay.
Like I had somebody a couple months ago who inherited property from his father, and he had been paying the mortgage for like 12 years. And the bank, nobody cares, right? As long as you continue to stay current on the payments. So,
And once it's paid off, you're the rightful title owner anyway, so it just stays with you. Phenomenal. So the second option is I've paid off my home,
okay.
but I don't have a will.
Okay.
I don't have a trust, and I died. Oh, God forbid,
God
he
forbid.
died.
Right.
Whoever he is, he died. So what happens to his situation?
So exactly what I started to explain at first is your property would pass through your estate. Now, what that means in each different state, they have different laws, but they're in large part the same. If you don't have any other plans legally made for your property, it's going to pass through to your heirs at law. But it doesn't automatically pass to them. It does, technically speaking, it automatically passes once you pass away. That's what the law says. Is title passes to my heirs. But you still have to go to court. So you'll have to go to the circuit court where the property is located. You'll have to open an estate. There's an estate administration process. That process can take anywhere from 6 months to a year. Depending on the details, it can be quite expensive. So that process is called probate. And we want to, if at all possible, avoid that process because, again, it ties the property up for 6 months to a year, can be quite expensive, right? And most people want to have some like a seamless plan where it's going to transfer to their intended beneficiaries.
All right, third scenario. He does not have a mortgage, it's paid off, but he has a will in place.
Okay, yes.
Then what happens?
So if you have a will in place, basically a similar situation. If I pass away, I own this house and I have a will, somebody in my family is going to have to take that will to the circuit court, open up an estate, and then they'll have to admit that, ask the court to accept that will into probate. And again, that process can take quite a bit of time. And if there are any, especially if there are any disputes over any part of it, I mean, that could be tied up for several years and be very, very expensive. So again, just from a timing, but also from a cost and preserving your wealth perspective, we want to avoid probate if we can at all do that.
That makes sense. So the other question that we would have, and I think we talked a little bit about this in our session 5. I mean, the real Talk 5. We encourage people to do trusts.
Sure.
Can you just step back and just say explain the process, why it's good, and that who can do it, or if anybody can do it? Can you take us through that process?
Sure, absolutely. So a trust is a legal entity that we create under the law that, think about it as a separate person, right? This person has all the rights of a natural person. We're natural people. Although my wife would say I'm somewhat unnatural, but that's what she says. But we're natural people, and then we have legal persons. This person has all the rights. It can own property. It has free speech rights. All these things. So we're going to create a legal entity that can hold title. That entity is going to be governed by a document called the trust instrument itself. And that trust instrument is going to say who's in control, what the rules are, what they can and can't do, who ultimately is going to get the property that's owned by the trust. So, and the trust is created by what we call the settlers, but that would typically be, let's say me and my wife, we're going to create a trust. We will be the trustees of the trust, right? So the trustee of the trust is the person who's in charge and controls the assets of the trust and has to abide by the rules in the trust, right? So let's say we've created our trust. This is going to be for me and me and my wife, and we're both the trustees. If we place our assets into that trust, we don't technically own the properties anymore, right? The trust does. And the benefit of the trust is the trust can't die, right? If we own title in our personal names, if we pass away, our property would have to go through the probate process, but the trust lives forever, right? Now, one thing that concerns people is like, well, I'm going to transfer my title to this trust, and like, what am I going to be in control of it? The answer is absolutely. So what we create are what we call inter vivos revocable trusts. What that means is you're creating it during your lifetime. The trustees, you who are creating the trust and transferring title, you're going to be in complete control, right? You have the right to do anything, including change the rules and including abolish the trust altogether. So it's kind of a legal, we call it a legal fiction, a way that we transfer title into this entity that can't pass, so that your property is not going to pass through the probate courts. It's going to stay there. Then once the trustees, let's say me and my wife, which we do, we have our primary residence in a trust. We both pass away. We have made provisions for one of my sisters. If my kids are minors, she's going to be the trustee, and she's going to administer the trust for the benefit of my children, right? So usually that means selling the property and giving the proceeds to them. But that's kind of the general idea in the benefit of the trust.
So let's use you as the example still. So your sister will, God forbid something happens. Your sister takes over and she manages the trust for your kids.
Sure.
If they decided to keep the property and pay the mortgage and stuff like that under the trust as is, if that was the case and your oldest child turns 18,
okay,
what happens then?
So we can do anything. And when we set up the trust, we can make the rules anything that you want. So what a lot of people would do is say, I have two young kids, 2 and 4 years old. So it's a real possibility that I might pass away while they're minors. What my trust says is they ultimately are going to get the property after my wife and I pass away, but they won't get access to the property or the money until they turn 25. Because most people pick 25 because by then you kind of calm down and grown up a little bit. But it could be 18, that the property would be transferred to them at age 18 and they'd have control over it. But really it's up to you how you want to set that up.
Okay, so for example, the way we set up our trust, what we did was, with you, obviously, what we did is my sister is obviously going to be the trustee once we pass away. And then if my children are still underage, once my oldest daughter reaches 18, then she would be a co-trustee.
Correct.
Until she turns 25 and can take over.
Take over completely.
And then when the youngest one is 18, then she could be a co-trustee with her sister, is the thought.
Yeah, no, and that makes sense. You have an adult who can take over in the meantime and make sure that the trust is administered the way it's supposed to be. But then, the idea is that ultimately it's going to go to your kids, but we want to give them some time to grow up. And
can you explain, because a lot of people are familiar with LLCs as well.
Sure. Can
you explain the difference between an LLC and trust, or the similarities?
Oh, before we go there, though, let me ask you a question. Yeah. Because this is actually a question that I have. So right now, today, I have my sister as a trustee. Okay. So
does she know that?
She does.
Okay.
If you didn't know, well, I have 8 of them, so they don't know which one.
I know which one. Okay, you better be nice.
I know, right? So my thing is, I trust my sister, and the reason I chose her to be the trustee is because I trust her.
Yes.
But again, things change. 2-3 years from now, let's just say she's not the most responsible human, and I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Then what would I do?
Basically, super easy. We're gonna just amend the trust. So we're gonna have a document that we sign that says, "Hey, this is an amendment to the trust. The settlers of the trust, everybody who's in control, and the trustees all agree that the trust is amended as follows. The successor trustee, instead of XYZ sister, will be XYZ other sister."
And then
So very easy.
What level of damage can this trustee do? After we leave, can they steal from my kids? Can they, like, how do you, how does that work?
How does that work? So really good question. So one of the things I mentioned, the trustee has to abide by the rules of the trust. The only people who don't are the people who create the trust. Like during your lifetimes, you can do anything you want. You can change the rules. You can completely abolish the trust. But once you pass away, during your life, the trust is revocable. I mentioned that. So you can revoke it or you can change it in any way. Once the two original trustees or the one original trustee passes away, the trust becomes irrevocable and the rules cannot be changed. Right? And so that is a protection. And then the trustee, as a fiduciary, is required to administer the trust according to the rules. And if they don't, then the beneficiaries can sue them.
Okay.
Right. So they can be held accountable in court.
Sorry, we can go to your
No,
question
that's
now.
So the question was really, can you explain the difference between an LLC
Right.
and a trust, or the similarities?
Right. And so when I explained LLCs, I used a very similar example. We're creating a legal person, right? We've got our trust and our LLC. The people who create the LLC will be the members, and they'll have a document that says the rules for the LLC, who's in control and what they can and can't do, right? So same thing as the trust on both sides. The uses for each would be different. So an LLC is typically used in a business context or in investment context because your liability is going to be limited to the assets of the company. What does that mean? That means, let's say I have a rental property and I place the property in an LLC because if the tenant sues me, if the property is owned by the LLC, they sue the LLC, right? And they win. Let's say we're wrong and they win. Worst case scenario, they can take the property, but they can't go after any of my other properties, right? I'm personally protected. And then we can layer those LLCs and kind of give multiple layers of protection. But really, that's the main benefit of the LLC versus trust. Trusts are used typically for estate administration. But same general idea, but they both do different things.
Do you encourage having different trusts for different properties, or can one trust?
That's a really good question. So typically, most people are just going to have one trust
Okay.
because you don't have that same liability issue that you do if you have multiple rental properties and you want to have those in LLCs, and you want each one of those to be owned by a separate LLC, so that if you got sued with this one, if the same company owns all three of these properties and you got sued by this tenant, they could take them all.
Yeah.
Right. So for the trust, you're not contemplating, being sued, and that's not the context we're using that in. And so, people have multiple properties. They might have your second home, their vacation home, and you can also put personal property. You can title investment accounts in the name of the trust. So the trust can be used for most of your assets to pass through to your intended
That's
beneficiary.
an excellent question, actually. I mean, something just popped up in my head.
Sure.
So trust, is this a true statement? Trust can only be for your primary residence.
No,
It can be for
you can put any property in there that you want.
one. So I have a trust. I have 2 rental properties. Okay. My primary residence is in a trust right now. These 2 properties are under LLC. Are these 2 properties going to be included in the trust?
Yes, we can arrange for, upon the death of the members that control the LLC, we can arrange for the assets of that LLC to be transferred into the trust. Or it depends on your personal situation, or we can make arrangements under the LLC for the interest in the LLC to pass to your children.
በጣም እናመሰግናለን ዛሬ Kelly, thank you so much. I really appreciate you doing this.
My pleasure. Absolutely.
ሄርሜላ ባልቻ ነኝ ከባልቻ ግሩፕ እንደገና ሪል ስቴት ኤጀንት በዲሲ ሜሪላንድ ቨርጂኒያ አካባቢ። ሌሎች ከተማዎችን መግዛት የምትፈልጉ ወይ መሸጥ የምትፈልጉ ከሆነ 33 ስቴት አካባቢ ወኪሎች አሉን። ሌሎችም ስቴቶች እየሰራንባቸው ናቸው። ኮንታክት አድርጉን። The Balcha Group on YouTube, the Balcha Group on Instagram, Hermela Balcha on Facebook, and the Balcha Group also has a Facebook page. Thank you again so much.
Dee Harris, በጣም እናመሰግናለን ዛሬ ስለ ጆይን ስላደረጋችሁን። ኬሊ በጣም እናመሰግናለን። Thank you so much.
Absolutely, yeah.
Dee Harris at Dee Harris and Associates on Facebook, and Dee Harris Realtor at TikTok, and DW Harris at Instagram. ተከተሉን። እስከሚቀጥለው ጊዜ እናመሰግናለን።
So if you guys have any questions about real estate, trust and estates. Some other things that I do are 1031 exchanges. If you don't know what that is, don't worry about it. Hermela can tell you what that is. If you guys have questions about any of these things, I also do business entity formation. So if you have questions about any of those things, I'm always happy to speak with you. Hermela can get you my contact information. But yeah, she'll give you my cell phone. Just call or text. I'll be happy to help you any way that I can.
Well, anything that you need that has to do with real estate and looking for a lawyer, Kelly is here.
Exactly.
Phenomenal. Thank you so much.
Thank you.